round number 2 of Flow State, man. We were just spitting a ton of knowledge, but we were just simply talking to each other. We thought we were live, but that's the challenge that happens with technology. But we're here. We're sharing some information. We're sharing some wealth. We're sharing some love. So hope everyone's having an excellent day. We're talking about Flow State today. Round number 2. I'll let you kick it off again, man.
That's tough because I was in a flow state for that for the first part of our discussion that did not get recorded.
It's time to bounce back, man. Let's see how good we are at getting back on track.
See how we can bounce back. Yeah. So before we went live, we were talking about how do you bounce back, from either a really good performance or a really poor performance. And the biggest thing is, to come back the next day and to come back with a clean slate, clean mind, knowing that, today is a new day, whether you did really well yesterday or you did really shitty yesterday. Totally fine, because in sports, one day you're going to be good, one day you're going to be off. And that's just how it is. So the way we can get into that flow state then the next day is to kind of, find out where you need to be mentally. Maybe it's more calm. Maybe you need to be a little more amped up, but for each person, it's going to be different, like we talked about. So find where you need to be for your best focus, and then try to live in that best focus by letting the game come to you, not forcing it, and kind of just letting your body take over, clearing your mind, and just knowing that you deserve, you belong to be in this position, or else you wouldn't be there. So you belong there, and all you have to do to get in that flow state, easier said than done, is to focus on the task at hand, clear your brain, and let your subconscious take over, and just, rock and roll out there.
So for those of you just jumping on, we're talking about flow state. We're talking about what is flow state? What's the importance of flow state? 99.99% of you have experienced, have felt it, have had that sensation of flow state at one point or another, whether you played sports, whether you had it at the gym, whether you had it at work. But that flow state, what we're talking about, and to piggyback off of what Billy said of finding a balance. Okay, so there's a great book. It's actually called Flow. Highly recommended to parents and athletes about finding flow and getting into this flow state. And what the literature says, what the research says is finding flow. So flow is this seamless execution of our body and our mind executing a skill or a task without a concerted, conscious, forceful effort. So everything is just, lack of better terms, flowing, right? That's why it's such a good definition of it, or a good word to use for it. So it's something that is not boring, is not easy, and it's challenging. So there's a level of challenge to it. There's a level of implementing your skill, but it's not overly challenging. It's not overwhelming. It's not a point of where it's putting too much pressure on you. So it's a balance between that being relaxed and that balance between of overexertion, of over challenge. So that's what we're talking about in that flow state today.
Yes, exactly. And for each athlete, it's going to be a little different. So as an athlete, if you try to kind of curtail your stimulation level to not only your personality, but also to your sport. So, as a baseball player, in a sport like golf, for example, we kind of want to be more relaxed, more fluid with our emotions. Our muscles work better when they're relaxed, and I always say in my lessons, quickness is power. So smooth is fat, or smooth is strong. The smoother we can be, the better. And the only way we can do that is by being relaxed in the game. But if you play a sport like football, maybe even basketball or hockey, maybe you want to be a little more charged up, and that's totally fine. But the best way to find that flow state is to experiment with it, not only in a game, but also in practice, in your training in the gym, and also just in your everyday life. If you're reading a book, let your mind be solely in the present moment. Let your mind be reading that book only, not thinking of any outside distractions. And this is where parents and coaches can come in to help their athletes and just remind them, so you're giving your athlete a ride to the gym, or you're taking them for a workout or whatever. Maybe just remind them, try to cut out all distractions, really find your flow state, so that when you find it now, then it'll be much easier to accomplish during competition. So, no matter what you're doing, try to be present with it, try to live in that moment, and find your flow. Even if you're playing video games, eating a meal, anything, that having a conversation with someone, be all there. And that's one of the best ways to find your flow, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. All of those things that detract, that negate from this flow state are quote unquote negative emotions, right? Fear, anxiety, stress, worry. And this is the story I shared 10 minutes ago, right? Is the golfer, the PGA golfer, the PGA golfer that lined up a 6-foot putt. He needed to make a 6-foot putt to win the tournament, right? And a PGA championship or a PGA tournament, there's a lot of money on the line, right? Well, this applies to youth sports as well. A 6-foot putt, a putt he's made hundreds and thousands of times throughout his career. He lines it up and he shanks it. He completely misses it. He completely blows it, right? So he gets pissed off. He gets frustrated. He goes to practice and he gets 250 balls and he just tries to make this 6-foot putt. And his problem wasn't his ability to execute the 6-foot putt. His problem was the ability to make it that one time. So when we're relating this to flow state and getting into flow state and staying in that flow state, then all of a sudden it's a matter of being in that flow state when it matters most. So practical tip for athletes, this is not to take away from your repetitions. Repetitions are important. Repetitions are the mother of mastery. You need to get your reps in, but challenge yourself. Challenge yourself at practice. One throw, one swing, one sprint, one action that you do. You have to do it one time. You put the pressure on yourself to do it one time. So you can't just wait for the game to say, okay, I'm going to get in flow state now. You have to practice it. If you don't practice it, you can't expect it to just happen in a game. If you don't execute a skill in practice, you can't expect to do it in a game. It's the same thing with your mind. And what we're talking about is the mind and flow. So you have to practice getting into flow state. So the practical tip is challenge yourself with one thing at practice. You get one chance, one opportunity to execute it. If you don't, you get punishment. If you do, you get a reward. It's how we're motivated, pain and pleasure, right? But practice it so that you understand. And like we were talking about before, every athlete is different. So you have to understand, do you need to get more stimulated? Do you need to get less stimulated in order to get in that flow state?
That's a good point. And I think that's where in practice for coaches to have to kind of have like a contest between your team, between your teammates. And you can have, like you said, to focus on one rep or, maybe one inning. So you have you play an inter squad and this is one inning, this is for all the marbles, or you do a hitting game, you get one swing, each person gets one swing, who can have more hard hit balls. And that is practicing that, getting your focus ready for that one rep, which in the game of baseball, in almost any sport, the next most important thing is that the next action, the next pitch, the next drive down the field, the next putt. So if we can try to find that flow state in the next task, then the flow state can continue on to multiple tasks after that, but we have to be focused on that one. And I think getting rid of negative emotion is great to get into flow state, but also getting rid of positive emotion can even be helpful, believe it or not. If you're going,
ooh, yes, I love it.
You strike the first batter out.
Yes.
Pitches, you're like, oh shit, I am fucking on today, right?
Yes.
Man. And then the next batter, hits a double in the gap. Next guy hits a single. They already scored a run. So right there, you let your focus kind of wane in a bad way where, you were too positive, too cocky. Try to stay humble, even if you're doing well. You can't really get into flow state from being overconfident or cocky. You stay in that flow state by focusing on the next pitch, focusing on the next task at hand, and try to get rid of all emotion, whether it be positive or negative, to just live in that moment and do exactly what you need to do to help your team win.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever heard this from Michael Jordan. He said, I get butterflies before games. People think that he doesn't get butterflies before games. He gets butterflies before games, but he gets them all going in the right direction.
Yeah, get them all migrating the right way, That's good. You should be nervous before a game. If you're not nervous, either you're not stimulated enough or you don't really care enough, in my opinion. I get nervous even as a coach, I would get nervous before coaching a game, or before just a scrimmage. Anytime I get out on that mound, I'm going to get a little nervous, but that's what I need then to direct it in the right way, to direct my focus on what I need to do.
100%.
Emotion can be okay, but you need to control it and try to kind of like step aside from it, know it's there, and then use it to redirect your focus to where you need it to be. Easier said than done.
We got a healthy comment here. Heels, I like your picture with your cat, man. In a flow state, you find yourself doing your task at hand and nothing else seems to matter in that moment. Referring to, Mahali, definitely. It's difficult.
Name, but dude, I dare you.
Yeah, not right now. It's so difficult to achieve, but once that flow is found, you immediately know it.
Yeah, you can feel it. You can feel it. That's why it's so hard to describe. Like this, this talk is tough because it's hard to describe flow state. It's more of a feeling than an action. You know when you feel it, but how do you get there again? And it's kind of like practicing it every day.
Here's where we can guide athletes and we can guide coaches and we can guide parents in the right direction, is that it's so important for consistency as athletes. Emotionally, mentally, physically, nutritionally, sleep, all of that is so important. So if you want to find flow on a consistent basis, you can't just have it be some random thing that happens. One day you feel good and all of a sudden you're in flow. Okay, great. Consistency is so incredibly important in your physical work, in your breath work, in your mental work, so that you can it is possible to re-access it. It is possible to get to that flow state, but the important is the consistency part of it. And we've alluded to it a couple points during this live so far, is that each athlete needs to have some awareness of themselves. But if one day you come to the field or you come to the ballpark and you've got this great breath work and you've got this great warm-up routine and all of a sudden you find flow, and the next day you change things up, you can't expect the same results. So consistency is incredibly important. But here's the interesting thing. Some people like to keep things the same, right? Some people like to keep things really consistent, but things happen outside of their conscious awareness that they're not even aware of. And some athletes like to change things up all the time. So then it's really difficult. So there's always a challenge.
Agreed. Consistency is definitely key. Once you get to a certain level in athletics and competition, once you get to high school and college and beyond, everyone has basically the same skill set. Some people are obviously going to be more skilled than others, but I mean, look at Tom Brady, for example. A lot of people don't like Tom Brady. Whatever, I like him because of what he's able to do at his age and his whole career. But he was drafted very low. He had a terrible workout at the combine. He looked like a pretty shitty quarterback, and he doesn't have more superior skills over hardly any quarterback in the league, really. But he's able to find that flow state. He's able to perform under pressure by staying relaxed. He's able to be a good teammate, to rally his troops. And the whole reason that he's successful is because mentally he's more prepared and mentally he's stronger than basically all his competition. So once you get to that certain level, high school and beyond, everyone's going to be pretty skilled. What's going to set you apart is your mental game. And finding that flow state is really what's going to set you apart and allow you to perform, better than your competition, is finding that flow. So for our athletes, we're probably going to go over something like this at our mental training seminar, where we're going to talk about finding that flow state. So, trying to find key ways to get yourself to where you need to be to focus is going to be so helpful, especially as you get older. Your skills aren't going to take you to play in college or professional. What up here is what's going to take you to be able to play at that next level.
Certainly. Well, Bill, any lasting thoughts you'd like to leave people with?
I just go out, each day and try to make every activity, find that flow state in everything that you do. I don't know if we talked about this while we were on camera or not, but finding that flow, and you know, you could be playing a video game, you're focused only on that. You know, having a conversation with someone, you know, focus solely on, you know, that person, make eye contact, whatever you need to do to stay focused. So I think you can't just try to do it and practice in the game. You got to do it and make it a lifestyle rather than something that you're only doing certain times. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Well, that's all I got today, man. Practice it.
Appreciate all of you. We'll see you next Tuesday, 12:34. Take care, everyone.
Peace.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, please smash that subscribe button down below and leave your questions in the comment section, because that's the inspiration behind these videos to help serve you guys specifically with what you're struggling with. And if you'd like to take things a step further, check the links in the description below. If you're interested in our coaching, if you're interested in checking me out on other platforms and connecting with me there. If you're interested in some of our other free training, definitely check it out in the description below. And I will see you guys on the next video.